Over the past few weeks, I've done a lot of trial and error with the DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro with night lapses. So what I did is I tried a whole bunch of different shutter settings, different ISO settings, different intervals. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you the settings that I found work best for night lapses on this camera. So the first thing we need to do is we need to toggle to time-lapse mode. And it may show as hyperlapse depending if you have that currently selected. And if you currently have hyperlapse, just make sure you select time-lapse. And then what we want to do at this point is we want to swipe up to set parameters. Now for the interval, you're going to want to put 30 seconds there. And I'll show you later on that setting may change if you pick a different shutter speed than I do. But 30 seconds is what I recommend, because if you have an interval of 40 seconds, it's just too large of a gap and you don't end up with a lot of frames for your night lapse later on. And then for the video duration, make sure to select infinity. And then what you want to do is you want to click up here and you want to make sure it's in 4K 30. It's going to give you the highest resolution for your night lapse. And then up here in the upper right, I recommend selecting wide. Wide is going to give you that widest view of the sky. And finally, we need to adjust the specific parameters over here. First of all, make sure Pro is selected up here. If it's not selected, you're not going to have any options there. Once you select Pro, you want to click on Exposure here, and you want to make sure you select the M. It will most likely be on auto. But after you select the M, you want to toggle the shutter speed all the way down here, and you want to go to 25 seconds. Now, if you do go to 30 seconds, it is going to give you a little bit longer exposure. But if you do that, you're going to see here that you can only do 40 seconds for the interval. You can't go any slower for the interval. So that's what I was referring to earlier. That's why I recommend doing 25 seconds, because it's a trade-off of getting that 30-second interval, which is much better. Just going to go back here and put it back to 30 seconds. And then for the ISO, I've tried several different values here. I've tried ISO 800. And with ISO 800, the footage was still too dark. It really didn't show many details in the sky. It was mostly just black. So then I tried ISO 1600 and it was better. It showed more details in the sky, but it was still pretty dark. Finally, I went to 3200 and I found 3200 to be the sweet spot. When I did 6400, it did expose the sky better, but the noise and grain got a little bit out of control at that ISO level. So I prefer 3200 as the balance. But if you are going to do denoising later on, you can go higher because your camera is stationary, so it will allow for you to go higher there. So you could do 6400, or you could even go to 12,800. So I definitely recommend playing around with that if you're going to use denoising later on when editing. Over here for white balance, I recommend doing 3800K. I find that 3800K gives those best colors in the sky for my liking. But if you do anywhere between 3200K and 4000K, it's going to be fine. 4000K is going to give you a little bit warmer look to the sky, and 3200K is going to give a little bit bluer look. And finally, for the format down here, I personally prefer doing video plus RAW, but you can do video plus JPEG, or you can do video plus RAW. The reason I do video plus RAW is because, first of all, I get that finished .mp4 product later on, which is a single video showing the entire time lapse. But I also get the individual raw .dng files. And what I can do is I can edit one of the photos, and then I can sync the changes to all of the photos and then export them. And then I can import them into my video editor as a night lapse. So the products I personally use for this is I use Adobe Lightroom. Adobe Lightroom makes it really easy to import those files. And then what I do is I tend to pick one near the middle where it has the average lighting for the night lapse. And I edit that photo, and usually I bring up the exposure a little bit, and I adjust the highlights and shadows to my liking. And then Adobe Lightroom does have denoising built into it. So what I'll do is I'll denoise all the photos after syncing the changes, then I will export them. And then after that, I import them into Adobe Premiere Pro and create my finished night lapse. You may have other photo or video editing tools that you use, and that's fine, but that is the workflow that I do. And of course, you are going to get the best results with those raw photos. As you can see here, this is the video file that was generated with my last test with these settings. And you can see it's not bad. It does show plenty of stars and a little bit of the Milky Way. It's still a little bit dark for my liking, but it's not bad and the noise is manageable. And then this night lapse you're seeing here is the raw photos from that same night. So as you can see, a lot more stars and Milky Way are visible in this night lapse than with the video mode. So I do highly recommend the photo mode for very best results. And by the way, if you're wanting to capture any of the northern lights that are happening several times this year, these settings will work great for that as well. And one other thing to mention, if you are going to be filming a night lapse all night, you're going to need a power bank to plug into your DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro. My favorite power bank to use with this is a 20,000 milliamp hour power bank from Anker. I'll link to it in the description below. One thing you're going to want to make sure of is that your camera doesn't get wet during the night. If there's a little bit of dew or something like that, I found that it's fine, but you obviously wouldn't want to have it out there if it's raining hard because water could get in here because you'll have this door propped open to have the USB-C cable plugged in. So do keep that in mind. And if you'd like to learn more about the DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro, check out this playlist right here.